Franchise is presented by FakeShep.net with support from Emresell. If you're looking to buy an iPhone, iPad, MacBook, or any other Apple product, visit Emresell today. They offer refurbished, top-of-the-line and next-to-new Apple products at a fraction of the regular price. And if you're looking to sell an Apple product, they'll buy them off you too. Visit emresell.com.au.
On this episode of Franchise, we look back at the series, which was a video staple amongst fans in the 80s and the 90s, and introduce the world to one of Hollywood's biggest A-listers. Hi there, my name's Glenn. I'm here with Jarrett. We're from FakeShep.net, and with an all-new installment on the way, we thought it was time to look back at those little furball fuckers and the weird-ass bounty hunters hot on their trail. So strap in and join us as we take a trip to Grover's Bend and munch our way through everything that is critters.
Well, I think I have a frush.
What the fuck is a frush?
Farewell, dear shithead.
Bolivians! No fucking shit, lady! Do I sound like I'm wearing a piece of shit? Lick my plate, you dog dick!
Of all the planets in the galaxy, they chose ours. They're hungry. And we are their favorite food. Critters. They bite. Rated PG-13.
Critters opens Friday at a theater near you.
How you going, Jarrett?
Good, sir. Very, very good.
Now, Critters has got to be up your alley.
Yes, definitely Critters is definitely up my alley.
Good.
Critters 1, that is.
Okay. Oh, okay. Well, I'm interested to see where this goes, but let's start at that point. 1986, Critters was directed by Stephen Herrick, who is also known for Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Jarrett's favourite, Don't Tell Mum the Babysitter's Dead.
That is a great film.
I know, I knew you'd say that.
Dishes are done, dude.
There's an F-bomb in that PG movie.
Yep.
The Mighty Ducks, Mr. Holland's Opus, 101 Dalmatians, and even Holy Man with Eddie Murphy.
I love Holy Man.
Man, I know you do. And
God, that's a really good filmography.
Well, until he's found himself now directing DTV titles like Dolly Parton's Christmas of Many Colours, Part 1 and 2, The Cutting Edge, Part 4, and Into the Blue, Part 2.
I know, I can't believe that they kept making cutting edge films. I knew that they did a DTV sequel, but I read a while ago they did a 3 and a 4.
What
and I'm like,
is with
what?
this constant disrespect of filmmakers that have actually done wonders for the studios? They've, delivered the goods over and over again, and yet in today's world of, limited theatrical, zero theatrical.
Yeah.
They're just banished to these shit-outs.
Schlepping it to
fucking,
DTV sequels to films that were never
this
really
guy's-
massively popular to begin with.
This guy's owed more than that.
Totally. Yeah, it's odd that he never came back into the genre territory again.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
like, his catalogue's done a lot of comedy and...
I know.
And it's Mr. Holland's Opus.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he directed that. That was a massive film.
Huge.
Massive film. Like,
Huge.
arguably gave, Richard Dreyfuss that kind of, like, resurgence in his career.
Yeah, absolutely.
Up until the recent allegations, which we won't touch on. 'Cause we don't talk about that stuff on this show.
We don't talk about that. Even 101 Dalmatians was a big film at the time.
I did. I saw it theatrically. Wasn't a massive fan.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's a huge film. It was one of the. That was actually one of those first live action adaptations of a Disney film. I forgot that they'd done that stuff.
But it was also a cult film. Like in my video store, it's one that was very, very popular.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Glenn Close was killer in it.
Yeah, it's Cruella.
Terrifying.
So the film Critters, it stars Dee Wallace. Everyone loves Dee Wallace. Emmett Walsh, Billy Zane, Scott Grimes, and Lynn Shay. And of course, Mr. Don Opper, who has pretty much been the stalwart right through this whole series. He's championed this all the way. I kind of consider Don Opper to be like the Reggie Bannister of Phantasm or the Michael Gross of Tremors. Like, it's the secondary character from the first film that ends up carrying the entire series right through to the end.
Absolutely.
So I love Don Opper. And also Terrence Mann appears in all four, albeit in limited capacity in the final two.
Of course.
Yeah, so I think it just opens up with that wonderful retro red New Line logo. Like, there's something very nostalgic about this film.
The vintage New Line logo.
Absolutely. And the movie itself throws back to that creature feature style of film from the 50s and 60s. Set in the small town of Grover's Bend, they become overcome by ravenous furball aliens called the Krites, who who escape from a space prison transport vessel, hijack the spaceship escape pod, and land on Earth with an appetite to boot. 2 bounty hunters are then sent. They arrive on Earth, hot on the trail, and these bounty hunters can take the form of humans. One takes the form of a famous rock star, which is the Terrence Mann character. And they provide the movie pretty much with its seek and destroy narrative. I adore this film. I think it's fantastic.
I love the first Critters.
My first memory of Critters was... Do you remember, I think Channel 9 particularly used to do movies not too far after home entertainment release, and they'd do them at 11 o'clock at night.
Yes.
That's where I first saw it, and then went back and got it on video.
Right.
We stayed up at about 11 o'clock at night. My dad let me stay up, and we watched Critters together. And
Very
it
cool.
was just one of those memories that I just hold very true. It scared me, but I recognised the humour.
Yep.
My dad would read those subtitles out to me when the critters are talking to each
of
other.
Course. Yeah,
and I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah.
I had recognised Billy Zane from other things.
Yeah.
I think at that point in time, I may have already seen Dead Calm because that's another late night movie.
Drive-in with my dad.
Yeah, that's another one my parents let me watch. And
Classic.
I remember him as that classic bad guy.
Such a good bad guy.
So he was already in my sort of psyche. And everything about it. I just, I love the puppets. It came off the back of Gremlins.
Yeah.
Did so many other films. We got Ghoulies and Munchies and Tremors and Hobgoblins and Troll and all these other things. And I think pretty much Critters is the be-all and end-all of those
knockoff cash-in movies. Yeah, absolutely.
It's right up there. The fact that it's practical, these critters, you can tell when there's hands in puppets behind, furniture. I love that. It's a very graphic film.
Yeah.
It's a PG film, but it's graphic in that Indiana Jones face melt sense. Like there's a lot of that kind of stuff going on here, which I think is amazing. When the bounty hunters morph their faces.
Oh, yeah.
It's all liquidy.
Very cool.
And that's very Indiana Jones.
Cool
and stuff like that.
practical effects.
But anyway, I ran away with myself there.
Yeah.
What are your memories of Critters?
Critters. Well, I remember the very first time I saw it at the video store was when it was on new release, and it was at a video store that I think was near the fish and chip shop.
Yeah.
So we'd go in and look at the videos while we waited for the fish and chips.
Yeah.
But we only joined that video store many years later. It was very close to us, but my old man, for whatever reason, didn't want to join it. It had very small selection of videos.
Yeah.
But they had it on new release, and I hadn't seen it at our video store yet. And I'm like, you got to join. We've got to rent it. And the old man's like, it'll be at a video store. Just wait. We'll get it another night. And me just like going, no, this is new. I've never seen it. I didn't know it existed. The artwork was immediately appealing.
Absolutely.
We did join that video store later to rent Alone in the Dark, the film with Donald Pleasence and Martin Landau.
Wow.
It was great. And that was one of the few video stores for some reason that carried The Shining. The Shining is very hard to find on video back in the day for whatever reason. But anyway, we did rent it out on video probably that following week. Actually, I think I remember coming home from school and Dad had it out for us and we watched it. And I dug it because it was like kind of rural horror, It was a throwback kind of film.
Very
kind of
throwback.
felt like a 50s, 60s kind of horror movie with a lot of humour. It had Dee Wallace, who I had a massive crush on as a kid.
Yeah.
It had a kid character that I could kind of identify with, which was a big thing for me. I thoroughly dug it because it felt like a nastier version of Gremlins, and Gremlins is one of my all-time favourite films as a kid.
Yep.
I was like hook, line, and sinker from the get-go with the original Critters, and I think immediately after we saw it, my dad would just always go, how about those bloody Krites? It would be funny because he'd
Such a
say
good name for a
Krites. I know,
creature
it's
too.
such a cool name.
Yeah.
Like, it's such a cool name. But, that was my first experience seeing it and knowing we couldn't rent it because it was at that video, so we couldn't, and having to wait a week, which was like an eternity for a kid.
And it's that kind of horror that's accessible to kids, but when
Totally.
you do actually get access to it, you kind of still feel like this is probably a bit too much for me.
Never do.
I'm watching a grown-up horror film. This is
True.
amazing.
Yeah.
And there's that whole, like you said, the rural aspect. Movies like this always took place in rural environments.
Totally, because it's
contaminations
that environment you can get away with doing a lot of stuff because you don't have to have large scale, which is the opposite of the films you see these days.
Yeah.
It's like set it in a city, make everything blow up. It's the end of the world.
Yep.
And you're like, why can't it just be in a small town and we just start like kind of like other films like even Invaders from Mars, Hooper's Invaders from Mars, like just do it on this rural sort of, which was right around the same time that movie was made.
Well, I guess the answer to that question
Yeah.
is why do they make it rural? They answer that in number
Production,
3.
yeah. Well,
what
true.
happens when you don't go rural?
Totally.
But interestingly, we can actually throw this one right back to a bit of Charles Band connection here.
Right.
Because, firstly, Critters was conceived long before Gremlins. The script for this was written way before. And it just, no one wanted to do it because it's been done before,
course.
with all these alien films. back then. But then Gremlins came along, and suddenly, we'll just put a one-word title against it. And that's the other thing. Those knockoff films all have one title, one-word titles.
Yeah.
But the Charles Bantai is that the writer of Critters was Dominic Muir. I think that's how you pronounce his surname.
Right,
It's
okay.
M-U-I-R. I think that's Muir. He created franchises like Ginger Dead Man and Evil Bong.
Oh god, yeah. So he is like
He
Charlie
even
Band's
he even wrote the
best
Puppet
buddy.
Master Axis of Evil.
Oh, okay, right.
So the guy behind Critters is that guy.
That one's got one of the reality stars of Vanderpump Rules in it.
Oh, well, there you go. But he passed away in 2010, so
Right.
that's, he didn't get to do anything else other than the Full Moon stuff. But what in general does Critters mean to you? Like, is this one that you do revisit often?
Yeah, totally, because I kind of forget the movie. I always think in my head that it is kind of like Gremlins. It's more outwardly funny and that sort of stuff. And then I'll revisit and I'm like, this film's kind of dark. You know, it is quite dark. And the way the family are savaged by, Dee Wallace, savaged by
kills are intense.
the husband, like, it's pretty violent, and so I always kind of forget that it's that dark. And so when I revisit it, I'm like, oh yeah, it is. It's definitely more toward that horror angle with some lighter moments, just to, probably to get it across the line to get it what it would have been in the States, or as a PG-13, or.
But it's always shot at night. It's always
it's all very dark.
Sinister in its.
It's lit really well for a film at night. It's predominantly nighttime. It has some really great lighting and just. Yeah, it's a really nice packaged horror comedy that is definitely weighing more for me as a horror film.
And I love to, like, with the family film angle, you've got Scott Grimes as the hero of the film. The teenage son is the one that says that. It's not the older, the father. It's not the,
the horny sister.
The boyfriend of the horny sister.
Yeah.
It's a kid. So as a kid, you watch it, you connect
totally
immediately.
identify.
Yeah. And he's a dweeby kind of kid too, which
He
made
is
it
a
all
ginger.
the more. He's the
Yeah.
ginger.
Yeah, well, and so, that's always going to work against him.
Yeah. Did you know the critters themselves, their voices were a combination of French and Japanese?
No.
They just sort of amalgamated together.
No, I didn't have no idea. That's
how they got
interesting.
that. So I would be very curious to get someone who knows both of those languages to actually decipher what they're saying.
What you're saying, yeah.
It's got to be done. It's got to be out there.
Yeah, surely.
I only found that out recently, so that's kind of curious. But even more awesome for me, and probably for you as well, is that the critters themselves were designed by the Chiodo brothers.
Yes.
Who made Killer Clowns from Outer Space. They were behind the effects in Ernest Scared Stupid.
Oh, one of your favourites.
Which the Killer Clowns appear in. And they did the effects for Team America.
Oh, wow, okay.
One of the puppet stuff in that. And Sword and the Sorcerer, one of their first.
Oh, Albert Pune.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, the Albert Pune connection.
You can guarantee I'll throw that connection.
His name's going to be dropped in almost every FakeShame.net podcast.
Well, that's a very intentional ploy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Without a doubt.
Yeah. So, anything else you want to add about Critters?
No, just like, I remember the US art's slightly different. It's got the family on the porch or whatever. But for us on video, it was always the key critter holding the sign that says, critters, and the tagline, they bite.
Yeah.
And it was like, that's fucking right.
That is a very cool
it's
poster.
Cool,
I don't really know the other one.
The other one's weird. If you look it up on the net, like it's sort of one sheet design. It's the whole family sort of standing on the porch, and I think maybe Dee Wallace even has like a shotgun in the picture. It's an odd poster too, because it's also set like at dusk or something.
Yeah.
It's like, well, none of this movie really occurs at that time.
Yeah.
But I do like the poster because the artistry is pretty cool on it. But I almost feel like maybe they were saving the reveal of the critter or something, in the US art. And here in Australia, they're like, we've got to sell it hard in other territories.
On the front, man.
That's it.
Look at the Tremors poster. It had big jaws and
totally. Yeah, it wasn't like a big fat
Gremlins,
Kevin
boom.
Bacon,
It's
It was a big fat monster on there.
What's your favourite of the other than I would assume Critters is your favourite of
Critters is my favourite of the franchise.
Spin-offs?
Oh no, sorry, of the spin-offs. Right, okay, yes. Oh,
not
probably
spin-offs,
early
but
review.
cash-ins.
Cash-in type movies. Yeah, I'd say Critters, and because here's the thing, Ghoulies, great in theory.
Yeah.
And every time I watch it, I find it a bit of a.
It's hard to watch.
It's hard to watch.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a, you're
I
like,
agree.
it's not as good as the cover.
I'd rather watch Ghoulies 3.
I'd rather watch Ghoulies 2. But yeah, without a doubt, Critters.
Munchies was pretty fun.
Munchies I have not seen since video in the 80s.
And they had
A
two
great
sequels
cover art
to that
also
as well.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the little munchie with the fast food. Like
Yeah, and
picking
he's
out on
looking up
chips.
the lady's dress, I think, as
Yeah.
well. Like, there's some good classic kind
Well,
of art.
interestingly, the Munchies sequels, the two of those, were directed by Jim Wynorski.
Right.
And they were G-rated
Were they
kids
produced by
films.
Charles Band or anything?
Yes.
They are, right.
But
okay.
in that kids line of
Yes, I've
entertainment.
seen the artwork. I didn't even know that there was a connection between them. And
There's
I think,
not, there's not.
There's not. It's just they're just namesake sort of thing.
Yep. I
Right.
think one's called. Actually, I think one's just called Munchie.
Yeah.
Then Munchie Returns.
Right. Okay.
But they marketed it as sequels.
And Wynorski directed them.
Yeah.
Chopping Malls, Jim Wynorski.
That's
Very
right.
cool. Very cool.
Yes.
It's another taste of terror. It's a second helping of horror. The fight is back.
You can't go in there. Let's just go get help. Well, who are we going to call? Critter Busters?
Critters 2. The main course. Rated PG-13. Now playing at a theater near you.
Critters 2, The Main Course, 1988, directed by Mick Garris, written by Mick Garris and David Toy.
Wow, isn't that incredible?
That is incredible.
Incredible,
This one
yeah.
also stars Don Opper, Terrence Mann, and Scott Grimes. They return. Lynn Shay also returns. I forgot to mention she was in the original.
That's right, yeah.
And she played, I think, the sheriff's secretary or something like that. She's a bit of a precursor to Lucy from Twin Peaks, I think. That kind of thing. She returns. Eddie Deason appears in this film as a fast food waiter slash
King of the
morphed
80s.
into bounty hunter. Eddie Deason, I tell you what, that guy's a bit of a prick.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I had some dealings with him on Fake Champ a while ago.
Oh, I kind of do
He's very
recall
political
this.
online, and if you don't align with his politics, then
Really?
you're a fuckwit. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
anyway, I think that Mick Garris, in my opinion or in my estimation, he recaptured the tone of the first film. I think this one, if you watch it back to back, which I did, I kind of feel like it's a seamless continuation.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, like
absolutely.
the Town of Grover's Bend is essentially how we last saw it.
How we left it, yeah.
The tone of the film. He shifted this one to daylight.
Which is an
Yeah.
incredible change because
Yes.
not a lot of filmmakers were doing that at that time. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the hardest time to pull off any type of horror. And granted, this one weighs more toward the comedy than the horror for me.
Of course.
But regardless, like, it's a bold decision to do that,
Very.
which is really cool.
Which I think is awesome too, because you could essentially call this part 2, have it take place the very next day,
True.
and it would work.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the actors are a little older. Scott Grimes.
I mean, Scott Grimes had just grown up overnight.
Yeah,
like,
he had.
Considerably. It's like, what? It's the same
You're a
kid,
young
but it's
man
2
now.
years later.
Yeah. And Don Opper's Charlie character has much more of a prevalent kind of role in this one as well,
Absolutely, yeah.
which is good. I love his character in these films.
Yeah, he's great.
He's a bit of a dimwit. In this one, though, he also plays the bounty hunter, which is
Yeah, he
not
does,
quite
that's
his original
right.
character.
Yeah.
There's that cool scene where they're stepping off the bus. Scott Grimes gets off the bus.
Yep.
And Don Opper meets himself. His
Yes,
doppelganger,
yes.
And then walks around himself.
That's
which
right.
For the time, what
Yeah,
an
it's
amazing
incredible
effect.
to pull off. Like,
For a film
optical
that's
effect.
a number 2 in a B-movie
Yeah.
kind of franchise is pretty cool. So the crux of this story, 2 years later, the alien race who protected Earth from the first movie, they perform a sweep of the planet and detect that there are still cryote life forms that exist. The 2 bounty hunters are then sent back to clean up their oversight, one of them being Charlie, aka Don Opper, and he plays the one that's a bit anxious about returning, but they also end up with some kind of hot chick bounty hunter with big tits.
Yes.
And Eddie Deason, of course, becomes a bounty hunter too. This is a
Yeah.
strange
Yeah.
addition to this.
Where's he work? He
series.
works in the chicken shop.
Yep.
The chicken coop or whatever it's called. I can't remember what it
Yes.
is. Yeah. Like even that's incredible. Like he's done this whole branding for this fictitious, restaurant sort of stuff. There's really amazing touches in this film. Like it's
Set
really,
pieces are great.
really
I
great.
think the best part of this entirely is the Easter setting.
Yeah, it's the first, possibly the only horror film that, apart from maybe Easter Bunny Kill
Yes.
Kill and maybe Bunny the Killer Rabbit.
There have
or
been a
something.
couple, but
Yeah.
none of them.
I don't know if they're set at
None
Easter.
of them
though.
have gained traction.
No.
This one is one of those, a bit like Ernest Scared Stupid, where
Right.
they play that every Halloween.
Yeah.
On Facebook, it pops up every Halloween.
Of course. I watched it on Easter this year.
Ernest?
No, Critters 2, the main
was gonna say,
course.
Halloween
I did
one.
actually watch it on. I watched it on Easter Sunday.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Critters pops up every year without fail. I think the connection with Easter is ingenious in this, and you've got the egg factor with these Crite eggs, and the kids paint them, and these eggs with the kids doing the Easter egg hunt sort of hatch.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the kids
And the
get
Reverend
attacked.
taking the eggs and
And
you
the
know.
Easter Bunny himself getting mauled to death by
Oh,
critters. Like, it is
amazing.
a nasty,
Yeah.
nasty piece. But like you said, the tone is lighter, it's more comical. But I think in a way that makes it a much more diabolical film.
Oh, absolutely. You can get away with a hell of a lot more.
And the bounty hunter transformations are very cool. Like, their faces are projected.
Yeah,
How weird is that?
It's really,
It's like some kind of 90s David Bowie video.
yeah, it's really clever. It's
where they've
pulled
got-
off
they've
really,
put
really
like
well.
a white mesh over their faces, like
Yeah.
a ski mask without
Yeah.
holes, and then projected the actors' faces onto
Onto
that.
it, yeah.
Amazing. I love it. I love it. For my money, though, the comedy kind of does let it down a little bit.
Right,
I think
okay.
there's a bit too much of it.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it
Too
plays for the
lighthearted at times.
slapstick a little too hard. I mean, it's even got like a Freddy Krueger joke in there.
Yeah, that's right. That's because it was New Line.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which, I mean, there were a few Freddy Krueger jokes throughout the New Line range at that point in
Of
time.
course, of course. Well, it's what do they call New Line? The house that Freddy built.
Yeah, that's
So
it.
It's understandable in that regard.
So what else do you have to take away with Critters 2? The main course. It's a cool subtitle.
I actually really like the love interest for Brad in this.
Yeah.
Her name's Megan. And I don't believe I saw the actress in a ton of things post this, but I did. There's a the Blu-ray release of this
Yep.
is phenomenal for the whole 4 films, in fact. But there's a retrospective interview. It's part of a bigger sort of hour-long documentary, and she's in there talking about it. But she's terrific. But I think the hardest thing for me to swallow about the whole of Critters 2 is how that character of Megan was attracted to Brad. No, I know that sounds awful. That's just mean. But no, she was stunning, and she was like one of my crushes. I feel like every film that we're talking about,
Yeah.
talking about crushes, and
Had
it
a lot of
sounds
crushes, mate.
had a lot of crushes. But yeah, look, I just I thought it was a lot of fun. I remember
You've joined up to a lot of video
you know,
stores too.
a lot of video stores. I remember seeing this being reviewed
Mhm.
on. I think it was actually the movie show. Funnily enough.
Yep.
And that being that taste of when you could actually get to see some footage from a film that you hadn't seen previewed in cinemas, and me going, I can't wait, but knowing that there was no way my parents were going to take me to see Critters 2, that I would have to wait for video. And yeah, it delivered. It was good. It was good to have a sequel that came so soon after the first one. I think in my childhood, all the sequels felt like they were eternity away. Like The Never Dead was 79 and Phantasm 2 was like 87,
Just out of
88.
your reach.
It was a long time.
Yeah.
And Evil Dead was like 81, 82, and then Evil Dead 2 was like 87.
So you've got one of the first franchises you can really.
The payoff was fast.
Yeah.
And Friday the 13th, yes, I had been watching them as they'd gone along, but because they started before I did, in a way, I kind of like, it was just, you knew it was coming.
Yeah.
So it didn't matter.
And
So that was a reward
part
too.
two that maintains
Yeah.
some integrity,
Absolutely. And I mean, I think that did wonders for the film too.
Yeah.
Having it come just 2 years after the original, not like, say, Godfather Part 2 and waiting for Godfather Part 3. You don't have that same sort of, judgmental eyes where, your
Yep.
expectation is set this far up. But the film plays fantastic. I mean, it is a great sequel. And in a way, it's quite complementary to the Gremlins 2, the new batch. Because it doesn't attempt to remake the first film.
New batch
It-
main
yeah, it
course,
does.
like
Yeah,
you've got the taglines.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It does its own thing, and look, it beat the new batch. Like Gremlins came out in 84, and Gremlins 2 was like 89, I think.
Yep.
So this film managed to actually come out with a sequel before. I'm not taking into account Ghoulies. We're not talking Ghoulies,
No.
but for
I
big
think this is a
films,
better sequel to Gremlins 2. I think Gremlins 2 is its own little beast,
It's
and
a
it's
weird
got its own
film.
little
I mean,
following.
it does. It has a massive
but
following.
it's not a good sequel to the first film.
No, it's its own
parody.
beast, and I like it. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not one of those people in the camp that say, for God, I'm definitely not the guy in the camp saying it's better than Gremlins. Gremlins is an all-time classic.
Yeah, I've seen someone on
Gremlins
trailers
2
from
is
Hell say
very,
that.
very good. Yeah. Oh yes, of course. But yeah, no. So I guess it is a great sequel and possibly the only good sequel.
Alrighty. Well, the funny thing, before we move on to the next, is the end title card confuses me a little bit because it says the filmmakers wish to thank the people of Grover's Bend, without whose support this motion picture could not have been made. What the fuck are they referring to?
Because it's a fictitious place.
Yeah.
It's
Is
Mick
it The
Garris
Crew?
does weird things like that though,
Yeah.
because he does that. He does at the start of Sleepwalkers, he's got that whole parody sort of
yeah.
opening inscription sort of thing.
The
I think he just likes to
pseudo
have a little bit of fun, likes to
factual-
poke. Actually, do you know Mick Garris's wife's in this movie?
Oh, is she?
Cynthia Garris.
Yeah.
Yeah, she is that alien creature that's like the gigantic head with the tiny, sort of body and that. Yeah, apparently she spent a long time in the makeup chair,
Wow.
and the effects for the actual scene images and photos look phenomenal, but then of course it's only viewed through that tiny monitor that's all distorted and everything else. So you think about these guys, these makeup guys that spent hours, and obviously her that was sitting in the makeup chair getting
Yep.
all these things done, and then it's on screen for such a short period, but then it's also so distorted up that you can't really appreciate the level of detail in it. But yeah, that was something I only learned from watching that doco, and I was
and
like,
of course,
wow.
the film also marks Mick Garris's motion picture debut.
Yeah, as a director, because at
Yeah.
that point in time he had only been a writer, and
He
had
directed episodes.
of things like Amazing Stories
Yeah,
and
that's
stuff
right.
like that. Yeah, right.
I think it's a great debut.
It's a fantastic debut film. Like, it's a real sort of breakout film. What did he go on to do immediately after this?
Well, that's a fantastic question. I haven't got the
Yeah,
answer
it's
to.
odd because we're pretty well versed in the universe of Mick Garris. I mean, there's a good chance that he probably did a Stephen King adaptation, but he might have them. Was Sleepwalkers? Surely Sleepwalkers couldn't have been the next thing he moved into. Sleepwalkers was like
That was his only studio film, yeah?
92. Yeah, Sony. Yeah, because that's why I always go. This is kind of a studio film, but it's not. It's like New Line before they became Lord of the Rings.
That
New Line
feels like
you
an
know?
indie film to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Have you got the answer in front of you?
I'm looking it up as we speak because that's.
I can feel the air being stretched as Jarrett scrolls.
It was. Oh no, yeah, it was. His next theatrical feature was Sleepwalkers. He did do Psycho 4 at the beginning, which we covered on another podcast, another franchise podcast. He had done that, but that was made for TV.
Yes. But
so
I would go so far as to say that Psycho 2 was his second film.
Psycho 4.
Sorry, Psycho 4
Yeah,
was his second
yeah.
film.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, for us it was definitely because it wasn't a TV movie for us. For us, it was we rented at the video store, so it was just as good as something that
But
played
even
in the
when
theater.
you call it a TV movie in the
Yeah.
States at that point in time,
That was when they had production value.
most
spent
people
money.
also in the States would have seen it for the first time on video.
Yeah, true.
You know, television was a big thing in America that not everyone had access to every
Course.
network and all that kind of stuff. So, and obviously prior to directing Critters 2, we'd done a lot of makings of The Thing.
Oh,
Goonies.
totally. Yeah,
he was-
yeah.
The Howling even. He was a real go-to back then. Still is.
Yeah, absolutely, without a doubt.
If you're looking for a new Mac product, Emery Cell is the place for you. Don't throw your money away on stupidly expensive Apple gear when Emery Cell provides top-of-the-line, totally refurbished products across the Apple range. Whether you need a new iPhone, iMac, Mac Pro, iPad or other Apple products, visit Emery Cell. And if you're looking to sell your Apple gear for whatever reason, Emery Cell can offer a generous price with full data erasure, fast payment, and free shipping. Visit Emery Cell's website to see for yourself. FakeShemp.net uses their products, and they wouldn't steer you wrong. Visit emerycell.com.au.
Tune in to the next episode of Rewind and Digress, where we track back to 1999 to discuss the largely forgotten zero-turn superhero film, Mystery Men.
Look, I think, it was consensual.
Okay.
But
well,
it was pretty weird.
hands down best digression I've ever
I know.
experienced.
Oh, man, if you like that one, wait until you hear the one in the next episode of Franchised.
Oh,
I've got a
no.
good one for you.
This is the most
Digressed.
confusing digression
I
ever.
know, it's like we've really gone down a rabbit hole, but we're not. It's pure darkness.
We don't know what we're talking about.
No idea. No idea.
And don't forget to rewind back to previous Rad episodes, where we discuss such classics as The Last Starfighter, Basketball, Electric Dreams, Tourist Trap, Squirm, and many more. Because you'll never know if you never go, and you'll never shine if you don't glow.
After their first visit, you thought they were destroyed. But they returned. After the second encounter, you thought the little menaces were annihilated. But you were wrong.
Oh, safe at home.
New Line Home Video cracks open a whole new terrifying generation. From the producers of the proven home video successes, Critters 1 and Critters 2, comes an all-new group of havoc-wreaking, fun-loving Critters 3. You are what they eat. The devilish critters roll into the big city in search of not only a place to call home.
Frank, is that you?
But a place where they can have their neighbors.
It's gotten too quiet out there. I don't like it.
For dinner.
That.
Stars Critters 1 and 2 veteran Don Opper. Critters 3.
What is eating him?
Don't forget, Critters 1 and Critters 2 are still available on home video. Critters 3. You are what they eat. Order due date November 26, 1991. Release date December 11th, 1991.
Critters 3.
Yeah, so this one essentially is most notable because it stars a very young Leonardo DiCaprio making his feature film debut. It was made in 1991. It was shot back to back with number 4. They filmed them at the same time. This one was directed by Christine Peterson, who had made a film called Deadly Dreams. She made Body Chemistry, and wait for this, she also directed Kickboxer 5 with Mark Dacascos.
Are you serious?
I am serious.
That is so surreal, dude.
Yeah, and the reason that that's surreal is because an upcoming episode of our Rewind and Digress will be talking about.
That's crazy. It feels like the last 4 podcasts that we've done are all interconnected.
Boom, boom, boom.
Weird.
So that is strange. She was a second unit director previously on Chopping Mall, Reform Schoolgirls, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Nightmare on Elm Street 5. In fact, there's a lot of Nightmare on Elm Street 5 connections to Critters 3. And she was also second unit director on Tremors.
Wow.
So her crossover to horror is fairly natural.
And the fact that she was like a second unit director on Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
That's the odd one out, but that's connected to the first film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Very, very odd.
Very small world.
Now, the writer of Critters 3, this is the most interesting part because it's David S. Shaw, who, you know his face. He pops up on countless retrospective behind-the-scenes documentaries. If it's a horror behind the scenes, he's part of it. Other movies he's written, Chainsaw Massacre 3.
Oh, he is constantly...
Nightmare on Elm Street 5, he did The Crow. He actually wrote the first Crow.
Yeah.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre was the beginning. So this is another guy that his pedigree of horror is quite substantial. And yet Critters 3 is just... What is Critters 3?
Look, it starts off strong. Like the opening of Critters 3,
well,
pretty
let's
strong.
Let's talk about the
pretty
story
strong.
quickly before we get stuck into it. So it's a pretty silly story. It begins out in the country where Charlie, Don Opper, is hunting for the final critters left on Earth. They happen to lay eggs beneath a Winnebago, and that family of the Winnebago heads back to the city where the critters essentially hatch inside an apartment building, and that's the crux of the film. Critters in a building. So
Which doesn't sound like it would be that bad. Because, even Troll was all
Yeah.
set within an apartment complex.
An urban setting.
Could work.
Yeah, it's like what Leprechaun did, I guess.
Yeah, I guess
eventually.
that's the thing. You take the critter out of the city, out of the country, and put it in the city. It's already a gamble. You know what I mean?
Very much so.
And you're working with such a reduced budget because you're doing 2 films back to back. But yes, we've got this confined setting where we'll set it all within the one apartment building. But I don't know. It was a bold call to begin with in doing it. But for me, the opening's where it's really strong, where you have all the families sort of first meet in that park scene and Charlie.
Charlie
and
pops out of nowhere. He's just
totally
this weirdo in the bloody
just out in the
bushes.
woods. It's like,
Hey kids, you want to see something?
Yeah, totally. That's what the vibe you completely the vibe you get.
But he says that to them. He says, "You want to see something?"
Yeah. And it feels,
And they're like, "Okay, Mr. Stranger."
yeah, we'll follow you into the woods. Got any candy? But yeah, it's a strong opening for me,
It is.
and it really establishes the dynamic between
Kind of-
rich and poor from the get-go.
Kind of cinematic as well,
Yeah.
I guess. But it just loses.
It falls
its way.
apart as soon as they get sorted to the city, and as
Yeah.
soon as you identify what the issue is. Okay, so this landlord who is running like this slum sort of building, is a tyrant. He's going to drive the people out, sort of thing. But then, of course, we've got the critter situation happening, and they're going to work against that. And I don't know, it's just a bit flat. I mean, Leonardo DiCaprio is really good in it. Like you can tell from the get-go.
He's a
Like
good-
honestly, you watch him,
good
you can
actor.
tell he's going to be something.
Yeah.
I mean, prior to this, he'd done TV. He'd been in
Growing Pains or something like that.
One of those shows.
Yeah.
It wasn't Who's the Boss, was
No, it's
it?
Growing Pains.
It is Growing Pains,
Yeah.
good. Because it's like, if it's Who's the Boss, my mind is going to explode.
No,
Because
it
we
wasn't.
cover that briefly on an upcoming episode of Rad.
No.
But yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't work. There's no sense of tension.
Yeah.
The humor in it, it's just completely sort of lost by the time we got to
It's
the
just an
apartment
odd film. Look,
complex.
the thing that really,
Yeah.
right from the start when I was a kid looking at this one, is that this one had an Australian PG rating, right? So you've got, like, when we talk PG with the original, we're talking American PG, right? Which is
Yeah,
the equivalent
yeah.
of an Australian M.
Yeah, totally.
So the first film was edgy, second film was edgy, then this comes along with a PG. Now that happened
Very
with
soft.
the House sequel.
Yeah.
There were a whole lot of things back then. You had movies like Arachnophobia that had a PG rating. And so I was just gravitating towards these as a kid because I could access them easily without having to ask to watch them,
True.
you know?
Yeah.
This was a massive letdown. I'm like, what the hell has happened with the Critters? I don't
Totally.
recognize this
Totally.
movie.
And this was the first one that was a DTV, property in Australia. You know, it hadn't gone theatrical. So that's when it turned up at video stores, it was sort of like, that's not a good sign. I didn't know they made a Critters 3 and it's on the new release shelf.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. And that was like kind of like immediately sort of, the flags.
Oh,
alarm
even
bells
the
had gone
opening
off.
title card is terrible in this one. Like
Right.
with that, you remember it says
can't
Critters on
remember,
the screen,
Yeah.
but then this like weird fat number 3 with a red spin comes along.
can't
It's just
remember that
terrible.
bit. I
It's
might have
like
been making a
It's like
sandwich.
the start of Play School. Yeah, you probably
Right.
were.
I knew what I was in for. So,
But
yeah.
on a positive, this film does feature Frances Bay, who's that classic character actress that was Happy Gilmore's grandmother in the movie Happy Gilmore. But she also popped up through the 80s and 90s in movies like Arachnophobia, In the Mouth of Madness, Blue Velvet, Karate Kid, Single White Female. This was a staple face. So when she popped up, you're like, yes.
She
you know.
the crazy old woman in Karate Kid that lives at the apartment complex?
Yes.
Or she is, yeah.
She is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know from In the Mouth of Madness.
In
she
the Mouth
ran
of Madness, I
ran
definitely. And I
reception.
remember Happy Gilmore as well. But
Yeah.
it was just like, I was just thinking back to Karate Kid then, because that was probably the longest stretch, because it's like 84 and this is
Yeah.
like 92 or something. So I'm like, oh, was it her? Because
Yeah.
you only really see her in a wide shot, not really that
And she's
close
in a
up.
lot of David Lynch
Right.
stuff.
Okay, yeah, interesting.
But anyway, I have always struggled with this one. It's a hard slog. I usually tune out 30 minutes into it and switch off. Like this
Yeah,
is the first
yeah,
time
I
in a
feel
long
ya.
time, probably since the first time I saw it, that I've made it
Yeah.
all the way through. And that was just because I had to.
It's true. It kind of like I was into it to begin with, and then as it goes on, I think my mind went elsewhere, and I was like, oh god, no, just pay attention. I'm like,
Yeah.
but why isn't it making me pay attention?
Yeah.
I should be really interested.
If I-
the gags don't work,
No.
like some of the humor with the critters is just kind of just flat, and it's not funny. It's just really overt, and yeah, just
If I was
don't know.
forced to find any positives as well, I'd probably just say on this passing, I probably found it a little more charming than I remember. I think there's a little bit more charm, but that's about it.
Yeah.
And the film ends with sort of a mid-credit sequence with the return of Ugg, Terrence
Yeah,
Mann,
yeah.
who sort of leads us into number 4.
When they invaded the box office, they grossed over 15 million. When they hit home video, rentals soared over 8 million. Now, they're ready for a whole new battleground. Critters 4. When these aliens enter space,
I wonder what hit this place.
The place wasn't attacked, it was abandoned.
everyone will hear them scream.
Bernie?
What?
Those, man-eating hairballs that you do not believe in.
Yeah, what about them?
I am reading 2 life forms on your level that could be them.
Where?
Levels 5 through 11 are being sealed into a Code 9 emergency.
Critters 4 stars Brad Dourif, the voice of Child's Play's Chucky and Graveyard Shift. Critters 1 through 3 veterans Don Keith Opper, Terrence Mann, and Twin Peaks' favorite villain, Eric Daer.
10 seconds to detonation.
Critters 4. Also available are Critters 1, Critters 2, and Critters 3. In space. They they love to hear you scream. New Line Home Video presents Critters 4.
So number 4, released in 1992, released 4 months after Part 3.
Wow.
How's that? This one was directed by Rupert Harvey. He had produced all previous installments, and he also produced a lot of other films like The Blob and Pump Up the Volume, Nightmare on Elm Street 5, there it is again,
Excellent.
and oddly, Plunkett and McLean.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That's
yeah,
weird. So this one's strange. Look, I've got to say, and I anticipate you're not going to think much of this one either. I like this one. I do like number 4. I don't know why. I think it's strange. I remember watching it for the first time, probably on home video, but it might not have been upon your release. It's probably like a year or two after.
Right, okay.
Because I remember thinking, well, Brad Dourif and Angela Bassett, how the hell do they get such high caliber actors
Right, yeah, yeah.
for a number 4?
True,
And then
true.
you look back, you're like, well, Angela Bassett wasn't
She
a
hadn't
household
quite,
name.
Yeah, hadn't become...
It was that year that she do Boys in the Hood.
Boys in the Hood, right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then from there on, boom, 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 she became
Yeah, the
this big
Tina
thing.
Turner movie she was
Yes,
in,
what's
wasn't
love
she?
got to do with
yeah.
it? However, Brad Dourif, he was a fairly staple name at the time. He was Chucky.
He'd done Exorcist 3 just prior to that as well. So, this was only a year later.
So I just find it absurd that, a number 4 kind of has a degree of credibility with its
True.
cast. It also starred Eric DeRay, who was Leo in Twin Peaks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was one of the main guys on this spaceship. And we should
Yeah,
mention
and
that
that's-
number 4 takes place in space.
Of course.
Because at the end of number 3, Charlie gets trapped inside this module with the critters that have been back into space, and they spend the next 30-odd years in hyperfreeze, cryogenically frozen,
yeah.
And they're thawed out on a spaceship, find themselves in the middle of space. It is strange. It's taking on the whole alien kind of horror, but we had Leprechaun in space too, so
it's true.
Jason ended up in space.
Was this the first? This is, I think, the first
in space.
Yeah, because it
Probably.
preceded Hellraiser, which Hellraiser Bloodline might have been the first one, and then Leprechaun, and then Jason.
But this one wasn't a stretch because they already came from
because there was
space.
already, you're right, because of the whole
we
origin
opened
from space.
That's right. We opened the first film from space.
Yeah,
so it wasn't a leap, but I kind of liked it. It's a very, very low budget version of Alien, I guess, with furballs running havoc.
Yeah.
And it's got the whole HAL 9000 inspired talkie computer, and there's a lot of tropes that it borrows from, and it's tongue in cheek, blah blah blah.
But it is an easy watch.
It's a very easy watch.
Much easier than 3.
Hell yes. But
Like,
the fact
I'm
that these came
surprised.
back to back, how did they?
How did they shoot them?
Well, how did they shoot them? But also, how did the quality differ so
dramatically between the two films?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's an odd duck. I think because they'd budgeted, say, the 2 pictures, and then suddenly they were pulling funds from this to that, and it was moving and shifting, and they were finding out they weren't going to have. Because I think they actually borrowed quite a bit of sets for Critters 4 from another film. I can't remember.
Yeah,
It must have been another New Line production that was being shot around that time, or had been shot. But yeah, I did watch a documentary on, I think it was actually on Critters 2, but it goes in to talk about Critters 3 and 4 at a point. And that was the thing, how the budget was concerned, because the projected budget was something, and then what was actually delivered was a significantly less, and the pressure was on to do these 2 pictures, and they brought on a writer to do it, and then hired another writer to rewrite it and do whatnot. But I had only, in memory, had seen Critters 4 once.
Yeah.
I was actually not even convinced I had seen Critters 4 when I put the Blu-ray on. When I put it on, I was like, yeah, I have seen this before. And I was like, I just don't remember what I think.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure it's not a great opinion, given 3. Watched it, and it was a very easy watch. And one of the things I did like about the film, as lower budget as it was, I thought it did have, and that could be courtesy of another production, really good production design.
Yeah.
I thought production design was good. It was lit well so that, you could tell that they didn't have things, but they made the use of the space and the light, so you weren't 100%
and had good
aware
actors
of its found, and good performance, good actors. It was a really easy watch. It's just a shame because you'd think if they only had a little bit more money, what else they could have done and achieved with it. But
it's a little bit perplexing too, that because they had shot them back to back, that number 3 was that PG family film, and this one's instantly R-rated.
Yeah,
Like, it begins with this pretty awesome shot that's a POV of the Krite burrowing its way down a throat.
Yeah, right.
And it cuts to the exterior shot of this furball in the guy's mouth, but then it cuts to inside the throat.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
there's
yeah.
there's blood everywhere, and it's like, how do you go from let's do a PG version, but while we're making that, we'll make an R-rated version. I guess maybe were they trying to market the third one to prepare for? I don't know. It's
a perplexing decision. Or did they shoot certain things for both films? Try to get 3 out and see if it would stick with the younger kids. It didn't, and then they went, bugger it, let's just go back to what worked.
But they made them together, so...
Oh, yeah, I know, but what, did they shear, 3 down to make it soft, and then they made 3 and then they went, we'll keep 4 as is,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. It's a good point. Of course, Don Opper is the one connecting figure through all these, even though Terrence Mann's in it micro briefly.
Right, yeah.
But Don Opper, I love Don Opper's character. I think he's quite good in all of them. I think he's sort of the quirkiness. He was actually a second unit director on Part 4, which is cool. Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
That's very cool.
And post that, did he go on to...
He hasn't done a lot.
Right,
the last film he's credited on is Invasion, the Albert Pune film.
Oh, I loved that. That was really cool. That was the single shot one on the dashboard.
Yeah, it's one of my favourite Pune films.
Very cool film.
He was one of the sheriffs in the corner vision. They cut to the police department up the top, the sheriff's department.
Yeah.
He's one of those
right.
guys there.
Oh,
so
cool.
Easy performance, but that's the last one he's credited on. Although, which brings us to the next evolution of Critters. He is credited as an executive producer on the Shudder exclusive short-lived series Critters: The New Binge.
Yeah, right.
Which we can't really get too deep into because that hasn't launched in Australia.
No, we're still waiting at this point.
It is a new 8-episode, 10-minute episodes, 8 of them, which pretty much makes up an entire movie if you watch them back to back.
Gross.
It is a bit of a relaunch. It stars Gilbert Gottfried, Thomas Lennon, and Stephen Merchant is in it.
Stephen Merchant's in it.
He plays the President Krite. So he's the voice of the President Krite.
Wow, that's so surreal.
Yeah. It was directed by a guy called Jordan Rubin, who had made Zombievers and another horror film called The Drone.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, there's not much we can get stuck into with this one because we haven't got access to it.
No, it's true. Do we know that, obviously it's working within the established universe of Critters? It's not like they've tried to reboot it.
It doesn't really connect by reference in the previous one. However, it could. Because it doesn't make one way or the other. It's just the critters come to Earth, wreak havoc again. This one, this storyline kind of works into genetic modification.
Okay.
Human crossbreeding, that kind of stuff.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So it kind of works into all that.
Right.
But it'll be interesting to see how people respond to this, once it hits Australian. I know Shudder's trying to launch down here.
Yeah, hopefully Shudder will be up and ready by the end of the year. I mean, they've got the UK, they've got the US, they've got Canada, so hopefully we're not far off.
For what it is, the New Binge is a bit of an experimental thing. Like I said, it's only sort of an 80-minute duration in total.
Right.
So it's the kind of thing that's easy to get through.
And what are the production values sort of on this thing? Is it comparable to sort of like the Critters... Any of the Critters films?
No, it's all daylight.
Oh, okay.
Mostly daylight. Yep. The gore is excellent.
Okay. And it's all practical sort of stuff or CGI?
Heaps of practical.
Excellent.
There is some very dodgy CGI with spaceships and stuff like that.
Okay, yeah, right.
But I guess that's comparable to the first film when you saw the spaceships. And then that was sort of puppetry and...
Yeah, totally. Yeah, models and stuff like that. Yeah.
I mean, it's nothing great, but I think it's a worthy addition to the overall franchise. Which brings us to a new film that just came from out of nowhere.
It's amazing. Like,
Critters.
2019 is the year for Critters.
Critters Attack is the name of the new film, which will be released this year.
It's getting like a global release. Like, when I say global, I mean we're actually in line with the US release. It comes out in Australia the same week as the United States, which is incredible because who would have thought? But
yeah. Well, and the other thing too, is this a direct connection to Critters or is it a brand new relaunch reboot?
Yeah.
The storyline has the Critters. It says they're back and they're attacking a new town somewhere else in America.
Right.
Dee Wallace returns, but not as her previous character, as a new one. As far as the trailer leads us to believe anyway.
So weird.
This one was directed by a young guy called Bobby Miller, who was a writer, director, and producer who worked for BuzzFeed, doing a lot of their stuff.
Oh, okay.
He also worked for Rainn Wilson's Soul Pancake Company, doing a lot of shorts.
Right.
And his previous feature was called The Cleaner, which starred Angelica Houston, Oliver Platt, and Jonathan Galecki. So
that's a pretty good cast.
He dipped his toes in the water.
Yeah.
He's got a little bit of experience behind him. It's a fully R-rated installment whether or not it's a reboot continuation remains to be seen. We'll just have to wait. For my money, I really hope that the Critters becomes the next Tremors, in that there's life with these DTV sequels. Because Tremors are still going. They're doing a new one now. And, you know...
Well, there's hope. There's hope for this. I mean, the writer, what's his name, Scott Lobdell, if he's done like Happy Death Day, like, I mean, you know, it's not Happy Death Day to you, which kind of is crazy in terms of doing something new and really...
Very good sequel.
But there's hope.
Yeah.
There's hope that something could be kind of cool with this. It's just so odd that there's been nothing for Critters, like, in terms of new films or series or anything since, you know, those last two in 92. And now, you know, 27 years later...
And these were made separately from each other, like
independent of one another. It's amazing how that can even happen. But I mean, it is kind of like, you know, a previous franchise we covered on Franchise, Child's Play, how we've got the new Child's Play, which is a brand new film, you know, but at the same time, the series is being developed. And it's like, with that series comes out...
all the studios are scrambling to find some hot properties from the 80s that we can just rejig.
True.
Critters will be an interesting one. I hope... in my heart of hearts that this is connected to the old franchise.
Likewise.
I don't think it will be.
But Don Hopper's not involved in this one at all.
Not to my knowledge.
Interesting.
Imagine if Charlie came back unannounced. That'd be just the
That'd
best.
be sweet.
That would be
really cool.
Anyway, I guess that brings us to the end of our little Critters binge. It's been fun. I really enjoy this series. I think number 3 is the only real letdown.
I agree. Like, because having gone back and watched 4 this time around, you know, I'm sort of on board, and I will revisit it. It's just going to be tricky because you've got that film in the middle, but at least with this franchise, you don't necessarily need to go back to the 3rd. You could just skip ahead, and then if you really want to...
Watch the end credits.
Yeah, that's it. Do that.
All right. Well, until next time, thank you for listening. I'll catch you next time, Jared.
Oh, this is great. The Easter Bunny with his Tehachapi hanging out. Give them kids a real education.